Crimson Desert sold 2 million copies in its first 24 hours. 2 million. That's not a quiet release, that's a statement. And ever since it launched, the same question keeps showing up in every comment section, every Reddit thread, every Discord server. Is this actually the best open world game ever made? Today we're going to answer that honestly. No hype, no agenda. Let's get into it. First, what Crimson Desert actually is. For anyone who hasn't played it yet, here's what you're getting. You play as Cliff, the leader of a mercenary group called the Greymanes, in a massive open world called Pywall. It's high fantasy. Dragons, magic, ancient ruins, a mysterious dimension called the Abyss that floats above the regular world and adds a vertical layer to exploration most open world games don't have. The game is developed by Pearl Abyss, the Korean studio behind Black Desert Online. This is their first single-player game, and they clearly spent a long time on it. The world is enormous, seamlessly rendered without a single loading screen, and visually one of the most impressive things running on current hardware. Combat is fast, aggressive, and deep. Cliff chains together light attacks, heavy attacks, grabs, and special abilities in combinations that open up the longer you play. You can fight on horseback, you can ride a dragon, you can learn new moves mid-combat by watching enemies perform them. The enemy AI is reactive in ways that make fights feel like genuine exchanges rather than pattern memorization. That's the foundation. Now let's talk about where it gets complicated. What it does better than almost anything. The world itself is a technical achievement that hasn't been matched. The entire continent of Pywall is one continuous location. No loading screens, no invisible walls. Every point you can see from a high vantage, you can reach. Standing on a floating abyss island and looking down at the entire world stretching beneath you is one of those moments that reminds you why open world games exist in the first place. The density of the world is where it separates itself from almost every competitor. You don't travel between empty stretches of land interrupted by occasional content markers. Every region has its own culture, its own architecture, its own population going about their lives. A clockwork city where mechanical beings tend nearby farms. Ancient ruins buried in fog that connect to underground systems. Coastal settlements that feel like they've been there for centuries. The world doesn't feel designed, it feels inhabited. The combat is the best in the genre. This is not a close call. Crimson Desert's combat system combines the weight of a Souls-like with the expressiveness of an action game and adds a skill acquisition system, learning moves by observing enemies perform them. That makes combat mastery feel genuinely earned rather than menu unlocked. Fights against large groups reward creativity. Boss encounters are spectacle and mechanical challenge simultaneously. The freedom to approach combat differently with different weapon types means the system stays interesting across a campaign that runs well over 40 hours. The scale of what's here is genuinely staggering. 2 months in, players are still finding content nobody had documented. Sanctum systems with hidden completion mechanics. Underground regions that connect to surface locations in ways the map doesn't indicate. Side quests that open up entire storylines completely disconnected from the main path. The game rewards players who treat it as a sandbox rather than a checklist, and the sandbox is genuinely bottomless. Where it falls short? And this matters. The story is a problem. Not a small problem. A significant one. Cliff is one of the least curious protagonists in recent memory. A man moving through one of the most extraordinary worlds ever built in a game who reacts to almost all of it with the enthusiasm of someone running errands. The main narrative fluctuates between hard to follow and genuinely incoherent, prioritizing spectacle over coherence in ways that leave major characters unexplained and major plot threads unresolved. Game Informer described it as simply a mess. Games Radar called the writing juvenile and shallow. These aren't fringe opinions. They represent a genuine consensus among critics that the story fails to match the ambition of everything around it. For players who can set story aside and treat the world as the point, this barely matters. For players who need a reason to care about where they're going and why, it's a real obstacle. The inventory system at launch was genuinely bad. The number of item slots available versus the number of items the game encourages you to carry created a friction that reviewers almost universally flagged. Pearl Abyss has already patched in a storage box mechanic that improves the situation significantly, but if you played at launch, you know exactly how frustrating those early hours felt. It's better now. It wasn't good enough at release. The opening hours are a slow burn that not everyone will get through. The combat takes time to click. The world takes time to open up. The systems reveal themselves gradually in ways that reward patience but punish anyone who judges the game in its first 3 hours. A significant number of people refunded it early. Almost universally, the people who stuck past the opening found something they couldn't put down. That gap between what the game is in the beginning and what it becomes is something potential players need to understand before they commit. So, is it the best open world game ever made? Here's the honest answer. In terms of world building and technical achievement, nothing else is close right now. The seamless rendering of Pywell, the density of its content, the vertical dimension the Abyss adds to exploration, these are genuinely new things for the genre. No open world built before it has done all of these things simultaneously at this scale. In terms of combat, it sets a new standard. The expressiveness, the depth, the skill acquisition system. If you care about how an open world game actually plays moment to moment, Crimson Desert is the best answer the genre has ever produced. In terms of the complete package, it falls short of the all-time greats. Red Dead Redemption 2 has a story that matches its world. The Witcher 3 has writing that gives every corner of its map emotional weight. Ghost of Tsushima has a clarity of vision that makes every system feel purposeful. Crimson Desert has pieces that surpass all of those games individually. It doesn't yet have the coherence that ties those pieces into something undeniable. What it is, honestly, is the most impressive first single-player game any studio has ever made. Pearl Abyss built something that shouldn't exist given it's their first attempt at this format. The foundation is extraordinary. If they iterate on this world with better writing and more narrative cohesion, the next game could make this question much easier to answer. For now, Crimson Desert is not quite the best open world game ever made, but it might be the most exciting proof of concept the genre has ever seen. And for a lot of players, that's enough. If you've played it, drop your honest take in the comments. Is it the best ever, or does it still have something to prove? Hit like and subscribe for more honest breakdowns every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.